Hey guys, Sean Hammond with PremierGuitar.com here today. We're at Dave's Guitar Shop in La Crosse, Wisconsin with Dave, the man. Dave is the guy, and the shop is the place responsible for you guys who are familiar with Premier Guitar, who read us all the time. You guys are the guys who do Vintage Vault for us, take the amazing photos of all those amazing guitars that are in our print magazine and online every month. So Dave, you want to tell us a little bit about how this place got started? You'll see in a second as we pan around, there's guitars and amps everywhere. Dave, how did you get started, and tell us just the story?
Well, I first started getting into the guitar. My older brother played, and kind of looked up to him, and saw his band play, and it did great. And so I always wanted to become a guitar player, and got more and more involved with it. It became a passion. I mean, I couldn't quit. I mean, my mom would scream at me to get out of the basement, go outside, play, whatever, do something, and I'd be downstairs playing guitar all the time. And it would have been fun to make a living playing in a band, but maybe I just didn't cut the mustard that way. So I thought the next best thing would be getting into a guitar business, and started taking that seriously when I was 25. I opened the first shop when I was 25. I had worked at a couple other music stores, and the one music store I was working at the time was going out of business. The couple was retiring that owned it, and I applied at some other stores. Nobody would hire me. Can't blame them. And so I started out a little guitar repair business on my own, very, very small, put every guitar I had out for sale. I had 16 guitars at the time, and sold them to get the business started, did a lot of refinishing, restoration of guitars, and had a shop 20 by 20 that I was renting out, and did good business for the first 5 years. I didn't take a paycheck at all, just put everything back into the business, grew it, bought a little bit bigger building, and started going to the guitar shows, sending out mailers on the guitars, and did mostly vintage and used at that time. And as things progressed, got more contacts at the shows, did more overseas business. And then when the internet started happening, we did a website, and that's when things really, really exploded. And
so was that back like in the mid-'90s or so?
That sounds about right. I had a friend of mine, when it was happening, we'd do our mailing list once a month. And for 2 weeks after we sent out the mailer, business was really, really good. And then the next 2 weeks it'd die off because, nothing new was happening. So I had a friend of mine come up and say, what if I had a way for you that you could, a guitar comes in 5 minutes later, anybody in the world can see photos of it and see a description of it. I was like going, what's this thing you're talking about, So he's like, let's design a website. And we did it, and from that moment on, it was just like, everything exploded. And the outreach, here we are in La Crosse, Wisconsin, population 50,000 people, but we do business all over the world. So,
all right, Dave, before we head upstairs to take a look at your personal vintage collection, which has a lot of stuff that is extremely rare, like some of them there's only a handful in the world. Let's take a look around the main showroom here, and you can give people an idea what they can find for sale on your website, which is davesguitarshop.com?
davesguitar.com, yep.
davesguitar.com. So where should we start down here?
Well, we can wander over here. This is kind of the Gibson corner over here. We do a lot of business with the Gibson Custom Shop. I go down there every month or two to pick out the wood for the guitars that we do. And a lot of 59 Les Pauls, a lot of 58 Les Pauls. We do a lot with the arch tops, a lot of ES. That's probably our biggest, the company we do the most money with, I would say, is with Gibson.
So along this wall and these couple of aisles here, you've got a bunch of really cool PRS guitars.
Yeah, we do a lot of business with Paul, and we recently bought a warehouse full of guitars that he had built in 2007 that were done with Brazilian rosewood that the government made him put a lock down on, and they just allowed him to release them this year. And he offered me first choice on them, which was great of him, and I ended up negotiating a deal to buy them all. So we've got a lot of those to choose from right now. They're worked out to be about 500 guitars altogether. So,
and you got to do some custom colors on some of those because when they were seized, they were like halfway through production, hadn't been finished yet and stuff. Right. Like we saw a cool seafoam green one a second ago. Yeah,
some of them had no color on them whatsoever, so they were like going, hey, the sky's the limit. You can pick out whatever colors you like. So we did some experimental colors and, created some fun one-off guitars that 10, 20 years from now, people will be like, where did this come from or whatever, something that's totally out of the books, really. So
The whole back wall of the store is Fender custom shop stuff. Is that right?
Correct. That is correct. We do a lot of business with them also. We've come up with a lot of runs with them, different models, different colors. Every once in a while, we'll pick a guitar out of the collection and kind of do a match of that, a replica of it. And we do a lot of business with these guys. They do a great job.
Now we've got Rickenbackers here on this aisle. We've got Gretches here, all new stuff. You got some used stuff mixed in with all the stuff we've seen, but relatively new stuff.
Well, and we mix in the vintage, like if there's a vintage Rickenbacker, which there's a few right now, those are hanging up here with these two. But yeah, the Rickenbacker and Gretsch area here. Over there we do all the basses. Over in that corner we do all the left-handed guitars. We really pay a lot of attention to the left-handed selection. I feel a lot of stores really ignore that, and I feel bad for the lefty guys going in and having a store with 1 million guitars and having like one left-handed one to choose from or something. But
given the wall we've just seen of all the left-handed guitars, which is quite rare, as you said, and really cool that you go to great lengths to provide stuff for left-handed players. Let's reiterate that people can go find that stuff to buy on your website, davesguitar.com. And of course, you have a few hundred other guitars that aren't even out here on the walls yet, right? That people can find searching on the website, the inventory.
Oh yes. And the website, we religiously update it every day. We don't leave here until we have everything that came in that day.
If people have something cool you want to sell, or have to sell, unfortunately, whatever, to get in touch with you via your website to see if you're interested. And you were telling me earlier, I think that if it's a decent guitar, you hardly ever turn stuff down if it's a decent offer and someone's reasonable. And
yeah, very true. It could be anything from a $100 guitar on up to, the choicest vintage guitar. If there's a deal to be had or, anything reasonable, we'll buy it. We're constantly searching for more vintage, more used American guitars.
We got this boutique wall right here. You've got brands like Collings and Sir. Tom Anderson.
Yeah. Collings, Sir, Tom Anderson. Again, very premier brands, and they're building some of the best guitars we've ever had. It's a great time to be selling guitars. The quality has never been better, I don't think.
All right, Dave, now we're in the acoustic room here behind us. We've got the boutique wall. We've got Collings,
Bourgeois, Santa Cruz. These people are building guitars, some of the best guitars we've ever seen, vintage or new, and it's wonderful to be representing them. And so that's a big part of our business. We get a lot of really good trades coming in from these high-end guitars. People will trade in 2 or 3 to get one really, really nice one, and that helps fuel our used business. We do a good business with Gibson Acoustics, the Montana Acoustics. Again, I feel like they're building some great things over there. Taylor, we've always been one of their top dealers. They build a very consistent, top-quality guitar, very easy company to work with. Then on to Martin, which is like the old standby. Everybody knows Martin guitars. We do a lot of business with them also. Love the company.
All right, Dave, so we've seen the main showroom here, which is like amazing by any standard, great stuff, but compared to what's up these stairs, it's kind of...
It pales.
Yeah.
It pales, yeah. I understand that.
Just look up the stairway and you're like, oh my God, look at that Jazzmaster. So let's go take a look at your personal collection that's upstairs.
Sounds good.
All right, Dave, so now we're up in your personal collection room with... We're surrounded by amazing guitars in here. How many would you estimate are in this room, or do you know exactly how many?
I think there's right around 500 right now.
And you've got on each wall, each of the 4 walls, the guitars are in chronological order from left to right. So this one goes up in the upper left corner here. This is...
this is a 1950 Broadcaster. Again, this is what started it all for Leo Fender, and a very rare guitar. I think less than 200 of these made, and how many of them are still all original or 100% stock? I don't know. There's not many of them around there. This was a very hard one to find. It took me a long time to get it. And
where did you find it eventually?
I bought it from a collector who bought it from Gruen many years ago. So.
And is it all stock? Is that part of the criteria for for something belonging in this room, or that it has to be stock, or?
Well, that really, really helps. I love to have them 100% original and clean. But, if you had a broadcaster that had a wiring mod or whatever, you wouldn't turn it down. Right. Fortunately, this one is completely straight, never been touched wiring-wise, and it's kind of a archaic wiring system on these. But again, this is one I'm near and dear to. Probably one of my favorite tellies.
Man, when we walked up here first, when we first got to the shop and we were looking around, it was like, oh my God. And so it was like, we're trying to figure out, like, how do we decide which guitars to talk about? And it's like, what does someone have to do to get something in here and walk in with a briefcase full of money? And Dave's like, we've had that happen, but no.
It just doesn't work. I mean, if we decide to hang on to something, we just hang on to it. There's been instances where we'll get something in that's cleaner than one we've already had, and we'll take this one and put it downstairs, put it out for sale. But, for somebody to come up and just say, well, I'll throw you any kind of money on a guitar here, that doesn't happen.
Now, you mentioned some people by name that have been in here. Are you at liberty to talk about any of those?
Oh, I mean, there's been a lot of famous people that have looked up here and tried to buy guitars. And again, not... all of them. I mean, everybody's money is the same color or whatever. And some of these guys, I mean, were heroes to me. And, I'd almost rather give them a guitar than sell them one or whatever. But once they're up in this room, we kind of like to keep them that way.
So this room is not just like, this is our nice vintage room. This is like a step above vintage. This is, I mean, it's probably fair to say these are very rare, almost every instrument in here. And there's a reason it's here. It's not just a 54 Strat or whatever. It's like many of these, at least, are exceptional examples of what they are. Yeah,
we'd like to think so. I mean, there's some very exceptional examples, and I look on it. For me, I'm a guitar geek, obviously, and it's kind of like a museum where where can you go to see a vision or a version of every Les Paul made in the 50s, or how the ES335 started, and see every transition of it. Working through all the way. I mean, we loan a lot of these guitars to different companies. To use for an example, last week, Gibson called us up and they were working on a Trini Lopez deal, and they needed one of our guitars to do the engraved tailpiece. So they said, hey, I see one in your collection. Can we borrow that to get the engraving done on the tailpiece? So, I mean, it's here for everybody to share. You guys have done a lot in your magazine, where we do that 2-page spread with a guitar from the collection every month, and we love sharing what we found and what we've collected over the last 30 years here. So yeah,
thanks for bringing up Vintage Vault again in the print edition of Premier Guitar and online every month. Would you say now, is everything that's ever been in Vintage Vault for, was it like 5 years now you guys have been doing that?
Sure. Yeah.
Is everything you've ever featured in Vintage Vault from this personal collection? None of it's ever stuff from downstairs that's like just normal vintage that you sell to people?
No, I mean, everything we've featured has been up here. And there's one guitar that we did end up selling that we featured in there. I had a 60 burst that we did end up eventually selling, that we had out for sale for a while. It wasn't selling. I brought it up here, and then we did end up selling that. But that's the only guitar that we've actually sold that's ever been listed in Premier. So,
how far through the collection are we at this point?
Boy, I don't know. I think we still got a long, long ways to go. I mean, if we've been doing it 5 years, 12 a year, that's 60 guitars. Yeah. So,
well, thank God you're still collecting. Keep us going.
Oh yeah, and we still buy stuff. We're adding to it all the time. I mean, I think we just bought 5 or 6 more Tweed amps that just got added to the collection, and we're adding guitars all the time. So
we could spend literally probably a couple days up here talking about every instrument, but we decided let's cherry pick a couple of guitars from each wall. So we saw the 50 Broadcaster. What else did you want to choose from the telly wall?
If you just scroll across, I mean, just Blackguard tellies are a personal favorite again, and there's 2, 4, 6 of those, which again, at a guitar show, if you go to Arlington, if you saw 6 Blackguard tellies at the whole show, you'd be lucky. Where here you get to see a nice array of them, and then going into 55, where we get to the White Guard, that's probably a 54, a late 54, and keep scrolling on, and you'll see how the Telecaster changed over time. Then you get into the Telecaster Customs with the bound bodies. There's a candy up red one. There's a white one over there. There's a black one. Again, very, very rare guitars.
What's the story on this one over here? I'm a Bigsby man, and that looks pretty rare. You want to tell us about that?
This has to be the heaviest Telecaster I've ever lifted. Lift this guitar. It's an early 70s ash-bodied Telecaster Custom with black binding. I've never seen another one like it. And Bigsby tremolo. It has to weigh 10-plus pounds. It's just...
What year was it again?
I think like 71, 72.
So what put that in your collection?
Well, it's super rare that it has to be one of the last Tele Customs, bound before they went to the, the newer version Tele Custom, which would be more over that way with a humbucker in the neck position. So this would be one of the last bound Teles. I've never seen one natural with black binding. And then again, the Bigsby makes it very unusual also. And clean as a whistle. I mean, it definitely warranted a spot in the collection.
Do you have any idea, even though, you wouldn't sell this, do you have any idea of what the value is of that?
Oh, I mean, nothing outrageous. I mean, I'm always pretty conservative when I value these, but it'd probably be a $3,500, $4,000 guitar. I've never seen another one, but there's a Paisley Telecaster with a factory Bigsby, and the way you tell that, there's no holes in the back, so it came right from the factory that way, and I've never seen another one. Not making it this all that valuable. I think Bigsby's hurt the value more than help on a guitar, but
hey,
but again,
watch it.
Yeah, we'll fight about that later. But again, very rare.
What are the strings on there? I mean, this is a silly question, but the red on the end, is that anything to do with?
Oh, no idea. I pay somebody, to come up here once a year and restring all the guitars and clean them up, and I'm not really even sure what brand we're using.
Original strings, Dave. Say that.
Could be.
Just kidding.
Could be.
The natural progression, I guess, from Teles would be to Strats here, and you've got a really special one here, a 54.
Yeah, there's a 54 right in the corner there. Nice bird's eye maple neck, very, very clean. Bought it many, many years ago for what I thought at that time was a very high price of $3,000, but never regretted that purchase. Right next to it, a 55 blonde Strat that I've known about for probably 25 years, and it took me that long to get it out of the family that owned it. Very proud to have it up here. Go ahead.
Eric Johnson is renowned for his love of 54s. Has he been by to try and cajole any of these out of you?
No, and I've done some business with Eric, but always at the shows down in Texas. He's never been up here at all. So, but we've sold him a few amps. As I remembered, I don't think we've ever sold him a guitar at all.
Now, in the middle of the ball here is a very special guitar that is kind of at the heart of what you guys do here. You want to tell us about this sort of aqua green one?
Yeah, this green one here, from what I've learned, they've only done four. They did four of these in 1957. I suppose they just got a can of paint and just did four guitars. And this one isn't all that clean by any means, but near and dear to me. I've had this guitar longer than any other guitar up here. I bought it from a PA store in Iowa for $1,300 back in probably 83, and I bought it to resell it to a friend of mine, and I had to scrape up the money to get the money for this. Borrowed some money to get this guitar, and then my friend saw it, and it wasn't clean enough for him, so he didn't buy it. So I was devastated because I was like, going, "Hey, I'll pay back the money by the end of the week. I've got this sold." So I had to do some begging, borrowing, stealing, whatever to cover my losses on it or whatever, and I've had it ever since. Again, just having a custom color maple neck Strat from the 50s is very rare, but this color is a very rare color, and it's obviously been played and loved many, many times. And one of my favorites, I guess. If the building started on fire, this would definitely be one of the first going out with me. So
it's been played and loved, that's for sure. Now, back in '83, I mean, my first electric was actually an '83 Strat, but that was a production year '83, and it was kind of one of their least popular ever.
Sure.
Without they took off one of
input jack there.
Yeah, and without one of the tone knobs and the weird tremolo. But I mean, back at that time, the vintage craze had not started at all. Did you ever have friends who were like, "Why are you buying that?"
Oh, I mean, I've had that happen all the time. I mean, I'd have people say that, if I saw that at a rummage sale, I wouldn't pay $25 for it, so I hear it all the time. I mean, and sometimes it's like, I think like a generation down the line or whatever, people will look at this stuff like I look at accordions or whatever. They'll go like, what in the heck? I mean, what did you ever see in this or whatever? And I hope
There's some really cool accordions out there, though.
Yeah, maybe they are. But so, I mean, I hope it doesn't come to that. But it seems like the guitar popularity is maybe waning a little bit. But, in my heart, it never will.
And same with me.
The fads come and go. And even now, you're seeing guys that were, too young to play guitar then, and it was their heroes that were playing those. So there's almost a retro craze of guys collecting 80s guitars with locking tremolos, Kramers, Jacksons, whatever. So, I mean...
you see guys in ads with, like, the blood-spattered look. Like, really? I thought we got rid of that.
Yeah, and you see it all come back, I guess. I guess no matter what, if you own a suit long enough, it's going to come back into style sooner or later, so...
All right, let's switch over to the Gretsch wall. Well, I think we're going to talk to Lon.
Yeah, Lon would be the Gretsch expert here. He knows much more about Gretches than I do. We'll get him for you.
Lon is the Gretsch guru here, and he's going to show us a few of the this whole wall rules, but he's going to cherry pick a couple. First up, we have...
Okay, well, this one is probably one of the earliest Cadillac Green country clubs from the 54, 55 area. It has one less inlay on the fretboard. Later ones had another inlay
on the first fret.
Yeah. So that to change to Cadillac Green. This is like a predecessor of it. Electro 2 moved on to that, and
this is all stock, like with old D'Armands and
D'Armands and the Melita bridge. The Gretsch. The Melita company, Gretsch got the bridge from, had the first fully adjustable bridges. I think they may have come before the Tune-o-matic by Gibson. Mm-hmm. It's around the same time. Normally they have a label on the inside, but the label is missing with the model number and the serial number.
Just because it was so early that they hadn't actually gotten to those yet? Or?
I think it maybe just came off. But we just know from the features that it has to be an early country club. A 56 6120 Chet Atkins Hollowbody. And that was Chet Atkins, the first model that they came up with for Gretsch for him, signature model. And they started out, they wanted to make it a full-blown country western guitar. They wanted people to know it was country western. So what better way than to have cows and cacti and steer and a brand on it? I guess some were actual brands and some, I'm not sure how they did the brand.
And back then that was the tremolo arm was stationary, right?
The early Bigsby's were stationary, and I think Chet Atkins preferred them stationary. Even when they moved on to have screws and move around, I think he liked his stationary. Kind of orangish stain finish, which could vary over the years and exposure to light and how deep the finish was.
Then down to the right, we've got is that like a Roundup?
Yeah, this is a Roundup, and this is about I think a 54. This came before the Chet Atkins. They already had these designs, and they kind of reused them when they went to the Chet Atkins. So it's got the cows, and this has some interesting leather binding. And this made it at least into one book before Dave had it, on the cover of J. Scott's Gretsch book, The Guitars of the Fred Gretsch Company.
Interesting that the inlays are faded, or is that just from playing wear?
I think so. It's it's hard to say. I think maybe the hand going over it faded them out. And often they came with pine tops. I don't think this is pine. It looks like more like maple.
We recently had this Roundup in Premier Guitar. Tell us a little bit about this one.
This is from about 1957. It has the features from 57, the hump block inlays, and the horseshoe. And I don't think they made too many Roundups. I think the general consensus is that the Roundups were sort of phased out in favor of, they had a Chet Atkins solid body that was almost identical, except for it had a bar. So you don't see too many Roundups after this 57.
So they're starting to move away from the Western theme, but couldn't get rid of the belt buckle and the leather.
Right. They kept that going.
Then you got a silver sparkle jet.
Yeah, this is from 55. They used, the interesting thing, these are similar construction, but they used drum covering. Gretsch was known for making drums at the same time, and the drums were made in the same factory in New York. So this is a plastic covering that they would use for drums, and they glued it right onto the mahogany ply.
Definitely looks a lot different than the current production ones, which still look nice.
Yeah,
but I mean, there's a three-dimensionality to this.
Sparkle, yeah. That would be used with more with paint, and this is with plastic. Right. So they haven't really been able to duplicate that.
You got a pretty cool Rick here that's pretty unusual and rare. Tell us about this.
This is the export version of their 12-string, and it's, I can't remember the exact year right now. I think it's 64, 65. And in England, the Rose Morris, the importer, had a whole different number system. And going off the top of my head, I think this is called a 1996 whereas in the U.S., it wouldn't have matched exactly any model because it had the plain neck with the 330 features, but it had the binding like a 360. So they had their own models that went over there, overseas, and people like, you'll see pictures of Pete Townsend playing something like this on the early Who songs like I Can't Explain. The export versions, in Europe they wanted F-holes to look a little more traditional, where most Rickenbackers are known for having those slash sound holes. And this is a common thing with Rickenbackers. Most people don't see this on the website, but this did have a headstock crack because these necks are so fragile. And they were easy to break with Pete Townsend like that about them. Well, he also liked the sound, but...
All right, guys, so we're switching off to talk to Carl now, who you're the in-house sort of acoustic guru in terms of repairs and other stuff.
More or less, yeah, I guess you could say that.
Cool. Now, this wall has lots of cool acoustics and electrics. We'll talk about the acoustics right now. The first one here is a Martin that we had in Vintage Vault in Premier Guitar recently, and you guys had some interesting back and forth, I guess, with us. And someone wrote in and was like, no, that piece of pickguard right here isn't original. And you want to tell us about that a little?
Sure. One thing that's hard to see in photos is how the finish actually goes up and over the top of the pickguard. You can see how it ramps up, and you can see how the pickguard material is the same between the two. To come up with a matching piece of pickguard material after the fact is, it's a pretty hard thing to do. So I don't know if I want to claim originality or not, but I just wanted to point out a few of those details.
All hints point to that. Clues point to it probably being original.
But yeah, this is probably one of the cleaner, more perfect old Martins that we've had through here. The only thing that's ever been done to it, there was a split through the bridge, so we fixed that. And then we did a tiny little back crack here that you can hardly even see anymore.
Now, what year is this?
It's a 37 D28. Other than that, it's got the original neck set, pins, saddle, nut, tuners, everything is perfect. Neck's dead straight. Action's a little high, but it's totally playable. So we just assume leave it alone and let it be cool that it's original.
Sweet. And next to that, you've got another Martin.
Yeah, these are two really cool ones. They one's a late 36. I forget which is which. One's a late 36. One's an early 37. Shade top, double O and a triple O. And the cool story with these is that they both came in here within 1 month of each other, from the original owners, two different original owners, and they both bought them in the same shop in Wisconsin in the 30s. So in the last probably 5 years, I've seen 3 more of these, I think 2 00s and another 000 shade tops that were almost exactly the same serial numbers. Wow. So there's a handful of these floating around the area. These 2 are the cleanest, though, for sure. These are, like this one, they're pretty much untouched. I did a neck reset on each of them a couple years ago. The extension was pushing down pretty hard on the top, and things were starting to move in there, so I put them back together. But on the whole, they're crack-free, all original.
On the whole, other than the finish and the cool stories about how they came in within a month of each other, are they pretty much similar to other double and triple O's from that era in terms of specs?
As far as specs, yeah, they're the same. These 2 are probably 2 of the nicer sounding ones. They're just lighter and drier than a lot of them that I've played. And having the neck set helps with the sound. And this is a 57 triple 28. Again, crack free, no neck set. All the original parts, and the coolest thing about this one is it has an Adirondack top, and it's not one of the mystery tops. It's not one of those questionable early 50s tops. This is straight up Adirondack, and I don't know if I've seen any where it's that identifiable. You can see the top on this one looks exactly like this, where it gets real wide out towards the middle and then super tight on the inside. Yeah, like that's exactly the same grain lineup, and it's just a perfect piece of Brazilian. Super quarter sawn, no figure.
Dave, now we're in front of a wall of a bunch of Hollowbodies by Gibson. This one you guys just got in?
Yeah,
just purchased this?
Just got this one. It's I think it dated to 1942, so it was made during the war, which finding arch tops from that era is tough. And so what did they call this one, Timmer? The Fern. Yeah, they had the Fern inlay, which is I think there's only 3 that we've seen L5s like this, and got it from the family of the original owner, and they were very pleased that we were going to keep it in the upstairs collection here. So this is a nice find for us. I think the acoustic arch tops are undervalued. When you look at something like this, it's worth a fraction of what a 50 Strat is, and when you take a look at what goes into building something like this, it's a work of art compared to like a Strat or a Tele.
Much more painstaking and artisan level craftsmanship, and
sure,
and much more rare, I'm sure, too.
Oh yes, definitely much more rare. And they made dozens of these a year. With the Strats, they probably made that many a day.
Sure.
So
can we take a look in the back?
Oh sure. Again, lovingly played for many years by the original owner. You can see the wear on the back of the neck, but just very well cared for.
Have you guys done anything to this, like refinish the back of the neck or anything, or do you prefer not to do that?
We never touch anything like that. We prefer them to leave them as original as possible.
Dave, next up, we've got a guitar that's particularly special and interesting.
This guitar was found for me by a friend of mine, Jeff Hill, who influenced me to start the business. He owned a music store in Minneapolis called Newt Capay, and he's just a beautiful human being. He died back in 2009, and but just a huge influence on me in general in life. A great guy, and he continued to find great guitars and was a collector himself. And I've always kind of kept this one as a tribute to him. And
what year is this?
This would be in 1952, and again, very rare to see them in sunburst finish. They usually came all gold.
It's an ES
295. Okay. Yeah, the thing that makes this the most unusual is just the color, really. I've only seen 2 like this, one from Eric Clapton's auction and the one that Jeff found me. This guitar belonged to the same family that owned the 55 Blonde Strat that was over there, and he personalizes his guitars. Earl, I'm trying to remember the rest of his name, but he personalizes things, and I kind of dug it. I left it alone. He had his name on the truss rod cover, and on the pickguard there he put his initials, a little kitsy, but why not? Why not?
This is an ES350.
An ES350, yeah, and this would have to date to 52.
Those real diamonds.
Yeah, and just a beautiful flame. You just don't see that kind of wood that often on these.
What's inlaid there? Just like rhinestones on the
I think
pickguard.
so. I don't know if they're real diamonds. Yeah, this is like that was.
Should find out. You never know.
You never know. You never know. But yeah, just again a fun, cool guitar. And again, we knew about this one for probably 25 years, and the gentleman had died, and the family kept it intact for many, many years. And when they did decide to sell, 25 years later, they contacted me.
So Dave, here is the wall full of Les Pauls and ES335s and such. Tell us about what we're looking at.
Well, basically, we tried to keep an example of everything they did. So this is the first example of what they did as a Les Paul custom. 54, they started these with the P90 and the Alnico. Went to the 3 pickup version in 57. First example of the 52 gold top, very early one, no binding. The screws in the treble pickup, no serial number on that. Going to 53 with a binding, missing the screws there. Going on to 54 and a super clean 54, all gold, clean as a whistle. Yeah, and you just don't see any greening on it anywhere. I remember buying this one at a guitar show, and even the case had a case cover for it. I like buying guitars from Fanatics, I guess. Going up to 55, really no changes there. 56, they did the stop tailpiece Tune-O-Matic edition. 57, they went to the humbuckers, the PAFs. That's the start of the best Les Paul right there. This is a 58 dark back. Again, no real changes there, but then they made this little minor change where they went to a sunburst finish, and nobody seemed to like them at all. You get to 59, that's what it's all about. That's the most popular solid body guitar there is. We bought that one from the original owner. We have pictures of her there playing in her band in 1967. Poster of her band there, the original receipt, her microphone that she used.
Now, something really crazy happened today when we were here just downstairs at the foot of the stairs. The daughter of the original owner showed up just to check and see if you guys still have this guitar. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't seen her in probably 10 years, I bet. And she just happened to stop in today to visit the guitar if it's still here. And we've made a little tribute altar per se to her mom with the photo and the guitar. And she was in tears when she saw it again. She thanked me for keeping it. And I told her I'd probably have it till I went to my grave. And her mom died, not too many years after I bought the guitar from her. But I told her that I'd be hanging on to it and treasuring it for as long as I lived.
Now, something like that these days goes for, you told me you had an offer of
a $300,000 for it just recently, yes. Probably a little more than what the market is bearing, but again, it's an all-original 59, no story, bought from the original owner, nice top on it. Is it worth $300,000? Maybe. I guess since I got an offer from it, I guess it's always worth what somebody's willing to pay for it at the time. But it's not for sale.
Sort of the space age efforts of Gibson back in the 50s and 60s here. What do we have? We have
a 59 Flying V and a 59 Explorer, a very nice set of guitars. The Flying Vs, I think they did less than 100 of. The Explorers, I think less than 20 of. Obviously a marketing disaster for Gibson, but as time has gone on, it was one of the more sought after guitars that there are. Finding any of these anywhere is like unheard of anymore. We're proud to have them. I never dreamed I'd have it. There's a big chunk of wood missing out of that one. That one
got a busted pickguard too.
Yeah. But again, to have a pair of these anywhere is kind of unheard of, and we're proud to be able to share these with the public, really.
All right, Dave, so we've been talking about amazing guitars this whole video, but you guys have a lot of really cool amps too, like not nearly as many. I mean, it's clearly not the focus of your collection, but you have some amazing specimens like this white twin here.
Yeah, White Twin is very cool. I mean, I'm just a Fender amp guy. I mean, there's, to me, nobody else ever even had to build an amp. You know, if Fender just did it, everybody else should just step down. I think they make the best amps around. Yeah, I mean, you can go through. We've got the brown amps. The blackface amps are, to me, like the pinnacle of what they did. I love like the super reverbs. There's a vibroverb over there, a very clean one.
What year is the White Twin?
The White Twin would be 61, and that's the first version they did after the Tweed Twin. Still didn't have reverb on it or anything, with a presence control. You don't see many of those around. The Twin reverb, vibroverb, is a very rare amp. I mean, kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan made these famous. That was his favorite Fender. 63, they made those with a 15-inch speaker. Again, a very clean example. And yeah, I just keep walking on down. A Vibrolux amp, not a Vibrolux reverb. So it has one 12-inch. That's a very rare amp. Then you get to the Vibrolux reverb, Deluxe reverb, Princeton, a Vibroverb, a brown Vibroverb. This is the first version, the first amp that they did with reverb. 210s, very clean, very rare, wonderful amp. You know, and it keeps going. The Super, Vibrolux, Deluxe, Princeton. Getting into the Tweed amps, there's a Twin there. I think we recently bought, this is a high power one. I think we recently just bought a low power one too that we haven't found room for up here yet. It goes on, you can see like this is the TV front style. The narrow panel is the most desired. That's when the late 50s, they were getting it all together. So the Twins, the Deluxes, Vibroluxes, players really gravitate towards those, the late 50s ones. The early ones are fun and good to collect. We've got a Deluxe over here. Nice to see all the different versions they did, but towards the late 50s, they really got it together for the Tweed amps.
Are you more apt to pay attention to guitars because, I mean, obviously you have a lot more guitars, or do you listen to pretty much anything that comes up?
Really anything that comes up, and I mean, you know, for stuff that ends up here, there's certain things I'm always looking for. And, you know, if we find an example that's cleaner than something we have, we'll buy it and then sell the lesser example. But, I mean, really anything, I mean, amp-wise, as long as it's, you know, good USA-made stuff, we love it all. We're freaks.
All right, guys, so we're going to wrap things up pretty soon here. There's too much to cover. You guys just have to come here to Dave's Guitar Shop in La Crosse, Wisconsin. But, you know, as you've been showing us the guitars up here, we've been focusing a lot on a lot of really iconic models, Tellies, Strats, Gretches, Les Pauls, all that stuff that has just skyrocketed into, you know, it's the rock. Everyone wants them. Sure. But you also have some unique off-the-wall stuff up here. We've got Wildwood finished Coronados, and here in your hand you've got a really rare, just kind of bizarre. Tell us about this.
A Fender Marauder. From what I'm told, there's only 8 of these made. They never got beyond the prototype stage. I've seen 2 in person, one sunburst one that I should have bought, I passed on, and this Lake Placid blue one. And then there's a sunburst one pictured in a catalog. The one pictured in the catalog had just no pickups. The pickups were actually mounted underneath the pickguard. This is the only one I've ever seen like this, with, you know, all the switches like that. But the headstock is the most unusual thing, that little swept wing with Lake Placid blue in it. I've never seen one with a headstock like that, and that's almost like a predecessor to the Starcaster headstock that they did. Again, it came out of California, you know, where somebody, probably maybe a Fender employee, ended up with it or whatever. But
what do you know about the switches? Like, is it like phasing stuff?
You know, it could be. I think somebody was going to build a replica of this once, and I think we opened it up for them and let them look at it. And
just never mind.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like there's so many switches. What would they all do? I mean, what was Leo thinking? I don't know.
What year was this, roughly?
This had to be, God, there's no serial number. So, I mean, it's 60, boy, it's the black inlays, so it has to be like 67, 68 right in there.
Because the bridge is sort of harkens a bit to the Mustang type.
Yeah, exactly. Mustang bridge and tremolo, basically.
Do you think it predates those, or came after? Or?
Came after. It came after. So I mean, this has to be. It has to be before '68 because it doesn't have the heavy poly finish yet. It's still the lacquer finish. So '67 is probably a real safe guess. I'm sure we've had the neck apart. We featured this in your magazine at one time. So there's probably more information in there.
What does it sound like?
I don't know. I don't know. Plugging this in would be kind of freaky. I guess it would be fun to do. I'll have to do it one of these days.
Cool. Dave, thank you so much for showing us this and everything else. Again, seriously, like, if you're ever in the Midwest, drop by Dave's Guitars in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and be sure to visit his website just to check out what he's got for sale. If you're in the market, if you're trying to sell anything, no better place to go. So davesguitars.com.
Yeah, and we do have all the collection on the website too now. So I mean, you can view that without even coming here if you have to. So
that's right. I mean, we didn't even show you. Like, there's too much to show. But behind the door over there is your photo studio. That's where you shoot all the stuff you shoot for us. It's always impeccably shot. So yeah, check out the collection. And thanks for joining us. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
I'm Sean Hammond with PremierGuitar.com.